What's up everyone, it's ENDYMION, and I've been reporting quite often now about Disney. There's just too much going on with them to keep up at a rational pace. The empire of Mickey Mouse is crumbling, and it's all self-inflicted due to their own moronic actions. But now Disney has openly admitted in a new company form that what they're doing isn't working. Beyond this, I want to also look deeper into the head writer of the Marvels and how this is actually going to get worse somehow. And then I want to look back in time and compare the overconfident nature of the MCU from a year ago till now. It's wild when you see just how sure Disney was that fans would love more diversity in the MCU. To begin, let's look at this article from thatparkplace.com titled, "The Walt Disney Company admits that consumers' positions on Disney's environmental and social goals often differ widely and present risks to our reputation and brands." In case you don't know, environmental and social governance is what ESG stands for. It's a relatively new scoring system that companies are ranked by based on their ability to create products or experiences that exemplify things like social awareness, diversity, and environmental change. Basically, the more you pander and put a chick in it and make her gay and lame, your ESG score will increase, which will then bring you higher on the leaderboard, and then investors with lots of money can see how woke you are and then decide to invest their money in your business. And then they'll probably lose money investing in that company, but at least their made-up ESG score ranking will go higher and the cycle continues. And Disney is just flat out admitting that it's not working for them. Really? I wonder who could have told you that. This all got revealed in the annual 10-K form Disney has sent to the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. I'll leave a link in the description in case you want to read the whole thing. Anyway, they're legally obligated to do this in order to, stay in business and keep making things and whatnot. In that form, Disney has a lot of things to say, so I figured I'd just tell you what and then we can decipher it. So they said, and I quote, "We face risks relating to misalignment with public and consumer tastes and preferences for entertainment, travel, and consumer products, which impact demand for our entertainment offerings and products and the profitability of any of our businesses. Our businesses create entertainment, travel, and consumer products whose success depends substantially on consumer tastes and preferences that change in often unpredictable ways. The success of our businesses depend on our ability to consistently create compelling content which may be distributed among other ways through broadcast cable theaters, internet, or mobile technology, and used in theme park attractions, hotels, and other resort facilities and travel experiences and consumer products. Such distribution must meet the changing preferences of the broad consumer market and respond to competition from an expanding array of choices facilitated by technological developments in the delivery of content. The success of our businesses therefore depend on our ability to successfully predict and adapt to changing consumer tastes and preferences outside as well as inside the US. Moreover, we must often invest substantial amounts in content production and acquisition of sports rights, launch of new sports-related studio programming, theme park attractions, cruise ships or hotels, and other facilities or customer-facing platforms before we know the extent to which these products will earn consumer acceptance, and these products may be introduced into a significantly different market or economic or social climate from the one we anticipated at the time of the investment decisions. Generally, our revenues and profitability are adversely impacted when our entertainment offerings and products, as well as our methods to make our offerings and products available to consumers, do not achieve sufficient consumer acceptance. Further, consumers' perceptions of our position on matters of public interest, including our efforts to achieve certain of our environmental and social goals, often differ widely and present risks to our reputation and brands." End quote. There's a lot to decipher there, but one part that really stood out to me is where Disney admits that the acceptance of customers wanting something can wildly change in an instant, and that the things Disney makes, which of course takes years before they come to fruition, can sometimes be the exact opposite of what they believe their customers would want once those experiences become available. We're seeing the consequences of that mentality in real time, with Bob Iger, who signed off on a multitude of projects from things like Marvel, Star Wars, and Pixar years ago. And today we're seeing the fruition of those projects he gave the okay to coming to light. Things like Wish, which are underperforming, or The Marvels, which very likely was signed off on for a sequel once the original made $1 billion. But like Disney admits, the landscape of when these decisions get made can vary wildly between then and now. Marvel back in 2019 was on top of the world. It was the most profitable and well-known brand. Nothing could come close to the might of a Marvel movie during that time. Every film was a box office smash. And even the ones that were not as good still ended up making upwards of like $600 million anyway, like Ant-Man 2 did, but that was then. Now Quantumania failed and The Marvels is officially one of the biggest bombs in cinematic history. The reason for this is simple, it's ESG. The never-ending crusade to climb that leaderboard of wokeness has led to companies burning their empires in order to increase that nebulous score. The only rational explanation for a company like Disney to allow such losses like they've had is simply because they genuinely believe that the loss of actual money is somehow worth the risk in order to slide up another rank or two against their competition. But it's of course nonsense, because you can't pay your bills or buy food with thoughts and prayers. And that's unironically kind of what's happening here. These people will look each other dead in the eye and go, well, we lost billions this year, we had to lay off 20% of our workforce, and all our brands are underperforming, but at least we went from rank 71 to 69 on the leaderboards. Like, there has to be someone with common sense on that board of executives who has to stand up and say, guys, this just isn't working, come on. But this is also why so many video games go out of their way to pander as do shows and anything else. None of this is being done for the simple reason because they can. There's been a very targeted effort to push and incorporate these things when ESG has begun taking over. Otherwise, things like the Deaf Girl side mission in Spider-Man 2 just wouldn't exist. That mission was not made for the player experience. Insomniac has to have known the last thing players wanted to do in that game was stand still, shake a spray can, and lightly hold down a trigger in order to paint a wall. The mission's entire framing is designed to have the deaf girl front and center, with the camera not moving dynamically or anything. It's just like the other mission in Spider-Man 2 where Miles helps the gay student ask his boyfriend out to prom. The game forces you to stand there in view of the two young boys talking to and embracing each other. Your control over Miles is pulled from your grasp to ensure you witness this exchange happening. The only reason why, in my mind anyway, that these two examples exist in Spider-Man 2 is so that Insomniac can use those missions in a PowerPoint in order to increase their ESG. There is no other reason that I can rationally grasp why those missions exist. The way they're framed, the way they pull control from the player in a game where they can yeet over buildings at any other point, it just feels bizarre and alien within that game. But it's just done so some old man or woman in a suit who votes on these ESG things can look at that and confidently state that what Insomniac has done there adheres to the wants of ESG. There simply cannot be any other reason for me to fathom it. And it's the same thing with Disney's movies or shows. These things are pushed and they hire people based on identity over talent for the same reason. So these things can all be neatly tied to a PowerPoint where a bunch of diversity hires sit in a room that they have no business being in, who've all been hired on identity or skin color instead of work ethic or talent, judging a thing they've been indoctrinated to believe is important. And then those people leave those meetings and with a newfound sense of delusional purpose, they go out into the world and inject more nonsense so that they can too make their own PowerPoints one day to show how virtuous they are as well. I refuse to believe that Disney genuinely does these things while clearly knowing that it's losing them billions. It just simply makes zero sense from a business standpoint to do these things knowing the collapse that follows. And I also genuinely believe that if ESG never existed, probably 90% of the nonsense we see today would have never existed. And we'd simply be seeing more of the kind of things we saw between the years 2000 to maybe 2012 or so still. You know, a time period where things were made to make money and cater to consumer interests, instead of PowerPoints and made-up leaderboards. But like I said before, the other baffling realization amongst all of this is how the people who keep making these failures keep getting work and failing upwards. Take for example this article recently posted by Variety, where they compiled a list of 10 writers working in movies to watch out for. For example, you have Tasha who currently has a slew of things coming out. But none of them are currently available, so I can't exactly say what she's made is any good. She apparently wrote the upcoming Red Sonja movie, she also did a Naruto live action movie, and an animation series for Amazon called Mighty 9. Again, none of these things are out yet, so as for the quality, I can't say if they're good. However, she will also now be the showrunner of Amazon's Tomb Raider animated series, which, like I said in my previous video, is being executively produced by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who starred as Helena in the box office bomb Indiana Jones and the Diaper of Destiny. She also was responsible for emasculating James Bond in No Time to Die as well. So her being the one in charge of Tomb Raider now is not filling me with confidence. But what's worse is that the writer of Amazon's Tomb Raider will be Megan McDonnell, who was the head writer of Disney's The Marvels, which I don't need to tell you how poorly that went for them. Megan started her writing job on a podcast and then somehow landed a job at Disney working on WandaVision. She's also a writer for the upcoming Agatha Darkhold Diaries, which again is a show I don't think we need at all. Somehow, this timeline we're getting a show about Agatha Harkness before Ghost Rider. It's such a mess, dude. Anyway, how this person managed to fumble the Marvel so poorly needs to be studied, and how these writers, producers, and more keep managing to fail upwards, when all they leave in their wake is destruction and messes as they jump from franchise to franchise, after they've ruined each one they come across. Amazon's Tomb Raider is like a feminist cocktail of nuclear levels in the making. The combined power of the Marvels, Indiana Jones, and a person who apparently made a bunch of stuff coming out and we can't currently speak on its quality are all combining forces on this one thing. And I just want to wonder, how does someone like Megan get this job after fumbling a motion picture this badly? For example, I used to work in a restaurant as a server prior to YouTube. I don't want to flick my own bean too much here, but I was really good at it. I would oftentimes get the huge parties and such basically all the time. I got those opportunities because I proved that I could handle the pressure and multitasking that was needed to do that. My secret weapon was that I looked at everything like a video game, so I was able to break down those big parties into side quests and it became much easier to manage. Maybe I'm slightly autistic, who knows, but the point is that because I proved myself, I would keep being given the harder and more lucrative opportunities. But in the restaurant industry, if a server fumbled a big table, they wouldn't be given another big table again. They would instead be given a smaller section in order for them to practice and maybe one day prove that they can handle the more complicated and demanding things the industry could offer. Why am I talking about restaurants? Well, because the movies, game, TV industry, all of it used to be treated like a restaurant. The people who could manage the complicated and riskier events would be promoted or given the bigger payout opportunities, because obviously they proved that they could handle it. And to flick my knobber one more time, I was offered to be promoted, but I turned it down and I pursued YouTube instead, so there's some lore for you, I guess. The point is, in terms of comparing writers like Megan or Phoebe Waller-Bridge to a restaurant, Megan was a server who was given a massive 30 top of businessmen. You know, a table with a lot of money that are hungry. They want multiple expensive liquors. This is a table where everything has to go right. And Megan, when it came to helming the Marvels, instead tripped with a tray full of Hennessy shots and drowned the whole table and ruined their suits. She also dropped their appetizers while bringing them over and ended up making a miserable experience for this eager and willing paying group. Do you think in that scenario that Megan would be given another chance at a huge opportunity like that? Or she would instead maybe be relegated to a 3-table section where she can hone herself and practice until she's ready to handle something like that again? The answer, in a rational thinking environment, is that Megan would have a reduced section. But in the Hollywood of tables, the Marvels failing is like Megan fumbling multiple 30 tops in a row. And yet instead of reducing her involvement, they instead gave her a golden opportunity on a silver platter, and now she's doing Tomb Raider. That's the entertainment industry right now, is what I'm saying. These people are not capable of handling the requirements of what's needed in order to compete or create things that resonate and do well. Yet they keep failing upwards anyway. The only reason this keeps happening, in my mind at least, is it just circles back to Disney's commission form and ESG. The only reason people like Phoebe or Megan keep getting work is because of their identity. And because if Amazon is able to prove that they're hiring women or people of color or whatever for things, it'll increase their ESG. Thankfully, at least where I worked when I was in restaurants, largely speaking, the people who stayed employed and worked was not based on diversity or gender. There were male servers and female ones too. There wasn't ESG nonsense involved. It just simply came down to, are you a good worker? Are you good at your job? And finally, can you handle the pressure when push comes to shove? When it comes to these things like Disney or Amazon's Tomb Raider, it's that these people can't handle anything. And they have no right or reason to be in the positions they have because they are clearly not adequate to do the work. And this is why so much of this is failing, because they're not hiring people for talent or work anymore. Look at Disney's Wish. Allegedly, most of the animators and the people who worked on it are new hires. And it was a woke miasma behind the scenes of voices. That's cool, and I'm happy for you, but Wish is massively underperforming. So what are we doing here exactly? I guess Disney can put a list of names in a PowerPoint and go, look how diverse our team who made Wish was, I guess. But any sensible investor or businessman would look right past those names and pictures and just stare at its critical and audience reception and how much money it made, and then they would wince. Disney does not have an intellectual property problem. Disney has a virtue signaling epidemic on its hands. They need to stop hiring people because they identify as multiple genders. Stop hiring people because you think their face would look good in a PowerPoint presentation so that you can pander harder. Hire people who are good for the job. Who cares what they look like? If what it takes to make a billion-dollar Pixar movie again is a team full of people who may not meet the diversity quotas, just do it. All of the best shit y'all have made was done because you had the right people for the job. You didn't care what was between their legs or what shade their skin was. You looked at the resume and went, yeah, this person is good, and that was it. Like if I'm in a tug-of-war competition and I see a bunch of roided out dudes, and I see a bunch of small women, you honestly think I'm going to pander and pick the 100-pound girl to join my team for diversity or ESG reasons? Hell no, dude. I'm gonna get the most jacked, most ripped guy who's probably on steroids, who eats nothing but chicken, rice, and broccoli to join my tug-of-war team. I'm not there to pander. I'm there to win. And these idiots will look you dead in the face and tell you that 100-pound girl is a better pick simply because of their identity. I can't with these people. I can feel my blood pressure rising. I'm going to turn Super Saiyan at this point. What Disney is doing is not working, and it's so evidently clear. They even admit it themselves, and even then they still won't change it because ultimately nothing matters besides the almighty ESG score anyway. Just look at how confident these weirdos were. Back in 2022, the Nerdist posted an article titled, "There is no MCU, but maybe there should be." This article was posted in August 2022 and shows just how overconfident these woke morons were. And they still are. The journalist here, whose name is Mariam Ahmad, said movies like Black Panther, Captain Marvel, and more were review bombed for not having white heterosexual men and or for discussing issues of racism and sexism. Why does a Hollywood $200 million blockbuster need to tackle racism and sexism constantly for these people? To these idiots, nothing can exist unless it pushes more people to adopt victim mindsets. It's insane. Mariam at one point says when it comes to She-Hulk and its disdain from fans that, however, labeling the series anti-man or woke is really just thinly veiled misogyny and fragile masculinity. Can you just accept that people don't want to be talked down to all the time when they're watching something? Is that so hard to accept? Why would I want to watch something when the people who made it so clearly hate me? This insane journal also said that they were disappointed that Jane Foster didn't appropriate and replace Thor. But it's simple, because she's not Thor. This is Thor. This is Jane Foster. Two very different looking people. I hate it here, dude. The more I read this article, which again is from a year ago, it just splurges with white men are the devil energy. This Nerdist writer hates men and wanted nothing more than Marvel to become a female-led dynasty. But it's like many have said, the reason why Marvel and Star Wars are failing is because Disney has taken what is predominantly supported by men, which you can dance around all that you want, it's true, and decided to make it a female-centric brand. It would be like if Sephora suddenly threw out all their makeup and told their female customer base to get lost, and only catered to straight men when it came to makeup. Sephora would go bankrupt in a week if they did that, yet that's what's happening here. It's a moronic decision pushed by people who are hired for diversity or gender instead of talent, that are getting mad that the people they have been conditioned to hate are not accepting their message. Disney and their apologists are falling apart at the seams because they are constantly trying to shove a square block through a round hole. And instead of realizing why that doesn't work, they would instead cross the arms, complain, and crap their pants. When they could just, realize that you can't just force things to work. It's sort of like a fart. If you have to force it to come out, it's probably shit anyway. We're at a point now where ESG has ruined things so fully that I genuinely don't know if it can be reversed in the next 5 or even 10 years. We're witnessing a collapse of brands and customer satisfaction unlike ever before. They fired multiple people working at Marvel, they even got rid of Nia DaCosta. And now the people who made these problems are moving on to new horizons. And as long as I breathe, I'll keep these people accountable. So thank you for watching, dear viewer. I appreciate it immensely. Thanks to my patrons. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed and want to see more. Have a wonderful day, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.